consultant at Lattice Consulting Limited, specializing in transaction advisory and training. Before joining Lattice, Kellie was the founding CEO of Mvuli Hotels, an investment manager at Alliance Capital Partners, and was formerly the head of finance at Cellulant Kenya. She is passionate about SMEs in Africa and has, for the last 10 years, worked with SMEs on financial management, operations, and capital raising. She tweets as @RookieKE. Hello, ladies and gents. Do you have your cup of coffee next to you? Welcome to Living with S. I'm your host, Sharon Mundia, and we are talking about business and money. Look, Tuesdays is quickly becoming one of my favorite days because that's what I love to talk about. That's what I love to learn about and explore. And I'm sure there's a lot of you guys today who have loads of questions. So if you have any for our guests, make sure that you leave them in our social media handles. Well, not handles, but social media channels. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle, however, is Living with S. And for today, we have Kellie Murungi in the house. She is a senior consultant at Lattice Consulting, and she's very passionate about SMEs in Africa. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
Very good.
Look, I've got my cup of coffee here. I've actually got a pen close by because I'm going to be taking notes. I'm not here to play. Okay. But, okay, so now we're talking about startups. We're talking about if you have had this idea for the longest time and you want to get into it, how do you go about it? So my first question to you is, how do you even know when you have a good idea?
Okay, so that's one of the things, that's a starting point, right? Like you say. And a good idea is made up of, are you meeting a need that is currently unmet? That's one thing.
Okay.
Or is your idea meeting a need better than existing, problem solvers? So you have different players in the market, and are you going to do better than them?
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, a lot of us start off by copying. So, so-and-so S is doing this, and it's fantastic. And she looks like she's making money, so I'm going to open my shop right next to hers. But that's not how to start a business that's going to be sustainable. Okay. It's either a need that's unmet or a pain that needs to be fixed or doing something better. So innovating, doing something better than what is currently being done in the market.
And how do you know if you're cut out for entrepreneurship? Because I know this life, it can't be easy. It's difficult. There's hardships. How do you know if you've got the personality behind it?
So, I think with years in this sector, I feel like it's less about personality. It's more about just deciding to go out and do it, but also being self-aware. Because there's a belief that there are people who are, like you say, cut out or born entrepreneurs.
Yeah. But it feels like Mark Zuckerberg was, came out as like, okay, I'm going to create, Facebook. And it seems like some are born and then...
There are some traits that predispose some people for entrepreneurship. People who are able to take risks, for example. And there are some things that are situational. So if you're born into, can I say, relative wealth, then of course you have more space to explore ideas, and you have the protection, so you can take some risks, survive, and still keep going.
It's making me feel, sorry to interrupt you, but it felt like you were, to me, talking about Kylie Jenner. When you said that, I thought, maybe that's why people have a problem with self-made billionaire, because she was born into some kind of comfort.
Facilitating her success.
Right.
But coming back home, like in the Kenyan context, I feel like surviving in Kenya makes most of us entrepreneurs, because every day you're innovating. I mean, you're solving problems that should be solved by other people. Yeah. And so when people ask, what do I need to do to go out into business? My response is self-awareness, because self-awareness helps you know what you can do and the skills you have and the skills that you need other people to come in and help you do. Okay. So that is basically it. Yeah. I want to say privilege, but in the Kenyan situation, to be honest, I feel like we're just surviving. Yeah. So if we just get that little push, then we all can actually be entrepreneurs.
I like that, self-awareness. Now, I was reading an article on your blog, and it was the article on how to think about risk when investing. And you said something that really caught my attention, and it was personality becomes an area of discussion because people would prefer investments that suit their personality types and attitudes towards risk. So immediately I thought, oh, so if you someone who's like out there and brave and, full of life, then you're more likely to be like, it's okay, I'll just take the bigger risk. But then you go on and say, but that's not how investing works. It's not necessarily if you're this loud, outspoken, vivacious character, then automatically you are going to take the bigger, the high risk investment, or that you're more prone to be a better entrepreneur. And then I guess I wanted to find out, besides self-awareness, are there other traits that we could build within ourselves or reinforce to help us garner the courage to get into business?
So there are skills that we could learn.
Skills.
So there's a lot of focus on personality and character traits. But entrepreneurship and running a business is actually about solid skills that you can acquire and learn and practice. In the Lean Startup, which is a text that people use, especially in tech when they're starting businesses, the author actually breaks down starting a business into almost a scientific process. So I have an idea. This is how I test if my idea works. This is how I take customer feedback. This is how I improve on it. And then there are the boring things. This is how I manage the money that comes into the business. This is customer service. So it's more, I have my idea and I feel I want to go out, but then what are the skills I need to learn and what are the steps I need to take to make sure that my idea is growing? Because a lot of times we go out there, I think this might work, and we go and we execute, but we don't do it with the discipline that it takes to convert that idea into an actual business. So that's why I say it's not really about your personality, but more the discipline, because you find a lot of the outgoing people, yes, they are more, and I say prone in quotes, to starting new things, but often they don't have the discipline to carry those things through. Because once you're done with the launch, it's nice and colorful, then you have to do the hard stuff. You have to go through the discouraging stuff. If you're sanguine and outgoing, discouragement is not your thing. When it gets discouraging, you want to move on to the next exciting
and that's
thing.
not what business is
That's
about.
not how business works. It's really the boring stuff, unfortunately.
So speaking, I don't know if I should really say this, but speaking of boring stuff, I find business plans to be quite heavy, and it's like, it's not the fun part. You don't want to sit down and explain your idea. You want to go out there and bring it to life. But how important is a business plan?
As the perception is that we do a business plan for other people, for investors, for example. But a business plan is actually for you as the entrepreneur.
Why is that?
Because when you go out there, you're in love with your idea. And most of us don't look at the downside, what could go wrong. A business plan is a result of a strategy exercise that helps you be thorough and look at all the aspects of your business idea. So there's the idea itself, there's a product, there's the customers, there's the marketing aspects of it, there's the finance aspect of it. So you find a business plan has many cogs. And that's why I said it's the boring stuff, because it's the discipline to go through each of those things and see, where do I have gaps? What do I need to fill those gaps? What's likely to go wrong in each of these elements?
And maybe that's where also you start to understand, is this really an idea that can work? Because it might be fun in theory, but then when you get into, let's say, the SWOT analysis, look at me dropping my business terms. What? I listened to you, lecturer during business school, but when you're going through your, the analysis, the nitty-gritties, that's when you start to think, actually, this doesn't make any sense. There's so much competition. The market is saturated. You realize maybe you need to move on, right?
Absolutely. And I usually recommend that you don't do the business plan alone. You could even have a friend or even someone, just a sounding board, a mentor, an advisor, because then they help, they guard against, like utter discouragement, where you're like, maybe this won't work. And they help you see that. But also where you're overly optimistic, they help you check that optimism and insert a bit of realism into it.
So we've just touched on a businessman, and you've explained that it really is a skeleton, and it helps create this framework for your business. What are some of the other steps when it comes to starting a business?
So there is what we call the legal stuff.
That's another one that's not too fun.
That's not fun at all.
And by that, what exactly do you mean?
So it's deciding the legal structure of your business. So will it be a sole proprietorship where the business is just like you and it doesn't have an independent identity? Do you want to take just one step further and register a business name? So like in Kenya, we have eCitizen, and it's a really, really short process. You know, you go and check if your business name is available. You pay a couple of, I think, 200 shillings. Okay. And you have a business name. Okay. But it's not a distinct entity from you. So if you're doing taxes or opening bank accounts, they're still in your name. Yeah. And then there's the, a limited liability company, which is, where the business then becomes an independent entity from you. It's a bit more work to set up. But you find, more businesses prefer that.
Why is that?
One, because then your personal issues are not tied to the business. So if the business takes, for example, loans or owes people money, then it's not you, it's not Kelly. People won't come for my sofa set at home. Although, we know it happens despite that. Secondly, it's more professional. So if you're going to be dealing with entities that need PIN numbers, memorandum and articles of association, and so on and so forth, then the limited liability company works great. Yeah. The other thing is, should you need to put money into the business from outside investors, then you can't do it as a sole proprietorship, because it would be like giving you money to go spend.
See, what's the account? Oh, okay. Just literally M-Pesa me, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah. So this protects them and protects you, and there's a bit more governance. Okay. When you have a company. Okay. Yeah.
So when it comes to starting a business, we have the business plan, we have the legal aspect. Yeah. What else should one take into consideration?
We have the tax aspect.
Yeah. Wow, you're really hitting us with the hard stuff.
I know, all the boring stuff.
Yeah, but it's really what makes the business.
It's a foundation. And unfortunately, a lot of us do these things when it's too late. So the tax aspect and the finance aspect. So tax is basically getting a PIN number, registering with iTax, and then finance, which turns off many people, but it's really as simple as recording everything you spend and everything you make and keeping all your receipts. Yeah. We say receipts on Twitter. In business, that's
they've
really
changed
it.
to what receipts mean.
I know. Yeah. So when it's time to do your taxes and do your returns, it's those receipts that matter. Yeah. So most people abandon all that. You're running your business, like you say, you're M-Pesaing and giving everyone cash. And then at the end of the year, the accountant comes and you say, but I have expenses. Here are my expenses. And they're like, where are your receipts? Yeah. Because you can't claim these expenses unless...
And then the government will be coming for what they're owed, saying, sorry, we can't tell for sure if you've been spending that money.
Precisely.
So you need the receipts.
Precisely.
Okay, so I think that even brings us into something that I was going to touch on, which is, what are some of the other things that businessmen and women underestimate when it comes to starting a business?
So the other one is the legal aspect. When you're now moving on from just me and you're getting your first staff member, there's a tendency to make it very informal, because we don't know where this business is going. We are just small, so you just come work for us. I'll M-Pesa you your salary every month, and it goes on and on and on. But you see, there's the Employment Act. And right now, the law is actually, which is a good thing, on the side of the employees. Yeah. Because there's a lot of exploitation of staff where people work casually without contracts forever, and it is illegal. So getting your contracting right for staff, paying their taxes, because as an employer, when you pay someone over 12,000, well, we should deduct pay as you earn. You should deduct their NHIF. You should pay their NSSF. So people overlook these things. And what happens is, as your business grows and it goes now above the radar, people are noticing it. The tax people are noticing it, everyone. And then you have an audit. And, they go and dig up the bones, where they're buried. And they say, when you started out, you had all these people. Yeah. How are you paying their salaries? And you have to be like, PAYE? Where is their contract? Or something goes wrong with your staff member and they sue you in the labor court.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So it's
you
good
need to have yourself covered.
Yeah, so pay attention to the Employment Act, pay attention to your taxes, pay attention to how you pay yourself in the business. Because often we just take money out, or write a check to, if it's for my daughter, pay school fees from the business. And all this is income that should be treated in a certain way. Right. And when the tax person comes, they don't really care that, I was just starting out with it.
But we needed, school fees to be paid. Yeah. Rent was due.
And most people will say, I didn't know. And unfortunately, that's no defense. Not knowing is no defense.
Yeah. Ignorance isn't.
It isn't. And then also just having your structures right. Because again, when it comes to raising capital, people go to raise money when they're almost running out of money. It's good to know how long you have. So if I know I have capital for the next 6 months, this is the time to start looking for money. Not month 5. And then you come to Kellie, I need capital.
And it's like, this looks like it's not even working to begin with.
Yeah.
But I actually want to dive into that just now. But we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be discussing the investing bit, the funding bit, the raising the capital bit, which is the tricky one. But we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, then you may have missed the beginning part, but it's okay. It's fine. I'll try to fill you in real quick. Well, we're here with Kellie Murungi, and she's a financial consultant. She knows everything to do with money, raising capital, and she's very passionate about working with SMEs. And today's topic, actually, is about how to start a business. Now, Kellie, before the break, we were talking about specifically, you were touching on money and how important it is to have your receipts in order.
Yeah.
And during the break, you didn't catch us, but during the break, Kellie was gave me this piece of advice, which I thought was genius, which is if you can't afford to have an accountant on your payroll because you're just starting out and it's expensive, then what she advises is for you to seek some advice from them. Sit down with them. They give you the basics on what to keep, what to record, and then take it from there, right?
Yes, and there are many tools now. We have very simple accounting tools that you can even have on your phone to keep recording your expenses as you go.
Yeah.
And so it would take maybe, I don't advocate for buying the accountant coffee because they have bills to pay.
Yeah, no, but you can
So you pay them just a small amount, and they run you first through the iTax, how to do your monthly thingies, and the accounts you need to keep. And then you do it by yourself until the end of the year. And until they can come and do your returns. Until you get to a point where you can afford someone on a regular basis. But it's really simple these days. So it's something any starting out entrepreneur can learn to do. Yeah.
Okay, so you were just starting to talk about raising capital, which I think is one of the moments in the business starting life that gets really scary and tricky and you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
How do you go about raising capital? What are the options?
So the first step is, of course, to know when you need the money, because like I said in the last section, people go to raise money too late, when you don't have salaries for next month. But it doesn't work because usually the runway to raise money, even if it's a bank loan is the simplest form of capital, and it still takes maybe for a business loan maybe a month from the time you apply to the time the money comes through. So it's to have that runway in view. If you're raising equity from a private equity fund or a venture capital fund, it will take 6 to 9 months, sometimes even a year, from the time they say, hi, my name is S, to the time you get that check.
Yeah.
So it's important to even a year, even a year and a half.
6 months to a year.
Because these people don't know you.
Yeah.
So they need
and it's courting.
Yeah, it's courting. They need to understand your business. There are things you need to do in the business to be investor ready.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying that the finance bit of the business plan is important because it tells you how much capital runway you have. And so you start planning. Okay, I will need money in December, and so I'm just gonna go to an advisor now and start the process of raising money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which fundraising option would you advise people to go for? And what are the options? You mentioned the bank loan. You said venture capitalists.
Yeah.
Which one would you advise starting out business to go for?
So when you're new in business, we say you go with the 3 Fs, so family, friends, and fools. That's the only source of capital that you have. Yes. So it's either...
Wait, stop. Kellie, 1 second. Who's the fool?
The fool is anyone who actually has the foolishness to believe in the idea before anyone else does. So
I'm sure there's people watching this and they're like, wait a second, I'm not family, I'm not a friend.
Could I be a fool?
Yeah.
So people...
But I'm sure they say it lighthearted. They don't really mean it.
They don't really mean it, but that's really what it takes, because we know that internationally 3 out of 5 startups fail. In Kenya, the statistics are worse. So you really need someone who believes in you to give you money when you don't yet have a proven idea.
Okay.
Now, in our model where we all have a job and then we have a side job, I usually say the beginning has to be funded from your main job or your savings.
Okay.
And that money goes to fund the business until you have some customers coming in. And then the question then becomes, I need third parties to fund my business. And then you have the bank, which is one option, unfortunately a limited option, especially now because banks are very risk averse with the low interest rates.
Okay.
So what many people do is they take an unsecured loan from their day job and take that money and put it in their business. There are risks there, of course, because if the business fails, you have to pay the money back.
Yeah.
So you have to work for 3. I did this for my first business, which was a farming business. Really, if I should know better. But I was like 24, naive, and I had my business plan. You plant onions, and after 3 months, you harvest and you're a billionaire, a millionaire, sorry. So I took a loan, and of course, it failed. And for 3 years, I was paying back this loan. I had abandoned the shamba. You know, I was like, wow, this thing doesn't work.
Farming has gotten the best of us. There's so many people with that story. So are you still a farmer actually?
Yeah, I just harvested onions. I've gotten wiser. So I no longer borrow to invest. But I also don't do it as a side gig because I realized that type of business needs focus, needs someone watching over it. So I have, thankfully, my parents who do the operations. I call them my CEO and my COO. And all I do is I provide capital, I provide ideas, thoughts around marketing. But yes, so that
you need someone who, you know, people who are there. My dad is very passionate about farming, and that's one of the things he constantly says. You can't just be in it for a quick, like, I can make a quick 700K on this. You've got to be in it for the long run. Because there's highs and lows.
And that's the thing with most businesses. So if you do decide to take a loan, a personal loan to put in your business, you should have planned your personal finances to make sure that if it doesn't work or if it takes longer than you hoped, you can still service this loan without going broke.
I hear you. In fact, last week we were talking about savings, and one of the things that our guest was encouraging us is that we have to have an emergency fund. And I guess that this is one of those moments where it would come in handy. Now, you had talked about venture capitalists or high net worth individuals who are open to investing in entrepreneurs. Where do you find these people? Where can one find them?
So that's so for tech businesses are lucky in that their businesses sort of, there's a culture of funding businesses. So there are all these first competitions where funders come and they listen to good ideas and they choose to fund some, and we'll talk about the pitfalls of that later. But the best approach if you're looking for money and you don't know where to find the funders is to talk to an advisor. Because what an advisor does is first they have a database of all the funders, let's say in Kenya and beyond. And second, they know how to which funder funds what, because not everyone gives money to everything. And so when you go in with your business, they look at the business, they see if it is ready for money or if there are things you need to do to get there. And then they look at what kind of investors will be a good fit for your business. And then finally, they work with you. Because remember, the people with money do this for a living. They fund businesses for a living. If you show up alone, you've never, you don't raise money for a living. And so you don't know what potential pitfalls, how to negotiate right, how to, the various clauses and what they mean, and how to basically stand up for yourself. Because it's like, it's like the marketplace. So you have your business, you're desperate for money. How do you then protect yourself from just taking the money and realizing, oh,
I shortchanged myself. They own 80% of the company. Why did I sell my rights, really?
So an advisor is on your side. They are unemotional, so they're not panicking because there are no salaries to be paid, but they're also not excited because they do this every day. And so they're able to tell when the negotiation is not favoring you, and they tell you, step back. And finally, the counseling bit. I say fundraising is it's like getting a baby because things change. It's your business, used to do everything. There are people coming in. It will no longer be business as usual. So an advisor helps you prep psychologically for that. And just set up the systems and the things you need.
When you say advisor, you mean financial advisor, right? So specifically?
Specifically transaction advisor.
Oh, so there's a transaction advisor. Okay. Now, you've found an institution or an individual who you think you want to approach for funding. How do you go about creating a pitch? What, in real quick, and the thing I've noticed also is that they don't want a 2-hour long, you see, let me show you why this is the best idea, emotional kind of presentation. It's usually within the first 5 minutes that they're like in or out. So you've got 5 minutes to sell your idea. What do you need to have in those 5 minutes?
So the only thing an investor cares about when they first meet you is the story. Basically, your story is why, not I was 5 years old and then
and then my mom
did and
me that day,
and so. And here we are today. It's more what is the pain that you're fixing? What's the opportunity? And we call it a story because people are more attracted to the story behind it. Can be the one person, one customer whose life you've made a difference in. So the pain you're fixing, and then the numbers. That's it. the pain you're fixing and the numbers.
And by numbers, they
where
want to
you're
know the
headed.
value.
So they know, not yet. So
Oh.
at that point, you don't say my business is worth XYZ.
Oh.
It's either number of customers, number of orders you have
sales,
filled, and
yeah.
where you're looking to be.
Yeah.
And then how much money you're looking for, that's it.
Okay.
And then with time, you get to the other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you're trying to come up with the value
Yeah.
of you know how much your company is worth,
Yeah.
what are some of the valuation approaches that one can take?
So we say valuation is an art and a science.
Wow.
Depending on who's looking at the business, it's worth different things.
Okay.
So, and that's where I advocate for some expertise. So getting someone who does this for a living.
Yeah, so it's not, I feel like
Yeah, you
maybe
know.
we're worth 10 million.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, it's not I feel like,
Yeah.
or, you know, I could have made this much money if I was employed and therefore my business is worth this. But what an advisor looks is the type of business. So
Yeah.
some business, the value is attached to customer numbers. Others, it's sales numbers. Others, it's profitability. Depending on, and others, it's the assets you have. So an advisor will look at your business and say, by type, this is the approach. These are the metrics that we need to look at. And then they apply certain multiples. It's a technical process. And they'll come up with a range and say, you're
Okay.
worth between this and this.
Yeah.
And then they will, now that's where negotiation comes in and say, we will start here.
Okay.
And then they will come and do the evaluation. And often they will end up here, of course, on the lower
Right,
side. And
yeah.
then we meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you is that it's you need a lot of expertise to guide you, and it's not really an emotional thing,
It is
but
not.
this is really scientifically
Yeah.
what your company is worth.
Precisely.
Yeah. When we come back, I want to ask Kellie about the online space and how important it is for you to have online presence for your business. We'll be back shortly.
This is N.
Yeah, because rent can be expensive.
Rent can be crazy for retail, and that's why you're seeing many businesses being exclusively online. There's the pesky thing of goodwill, which if you're setting up a shop in CBD, you go and there's a stall, it's empty, and they tell you pay goodwill is 1 million, and you don't know what you're paying for. I also
so what does goodwill mean?
To be honest, what is it? To this day, I don't know what it means. Because we have an accounting definition of goodwill, which is if you have your business and you're selling it, so you're selling the customers, the reputation, that is goodwill. But the goodwill in Nairobi is something else. I don't know what it is, but it is there, and it's a lot. Okay. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's almost exorbitant.
Yeah, so you have to consider, if I take up this piece, what else am I giving up for it? So if goodwill is 300,000, would it make more sense to invest in an online business, put that 300,000 in marketing, logistics, and so on and so forth, until I get to a point where my business is big enough to afford an offline space? And we've seen this. You're a mom, like with kids stuff, some businesses start online, and with time they open a location.
Yeah, especially with clothing, because people want, sure, online shopping is growing, but there's still a good number of people who want to try and feel and fit it.
And if you're starting out, to be honest, it's a lot of money, so you need to be sure that that investment will pay off. If you open the business, they will come. They don't always come.
$1 million shillings on goodwill that you're not even entirely certain exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you touched on marketing and how, sometimes it's good to put money in this and not in that. What area of business is usually or should be the one that takes up most of your money? Is it staff? Is it marketing? Is it PR? Is it assets, or,
Again, it depends with the type of business. So, for example, if you're in technology, your assets is the brains of the people who work for you. So, almost 90% of your effort should go into making sure that those people are happy. And it's not always salary. Sometimes it's as easy as providing them with lunch.
Or daycare. Or daycare, creche,
And research, has shown that the most, funnily enough, important thing in terms of retaining staff is food. Especially millennials. Yes, we like food, so just feed us.
What does that say about millennials? Oh, geez.
I think we hate cooking or something, but so
feed us, we'll be there, we'll be at your service.
So technology companies, especially, because they are very high turnover, the ones that feed their staff keep them for longer.
Oh my goodness! You know what? I've just remembered, some of the people I follow on Instagram are people who work at Instagram. And the thing that sticks to mind about how great that company is the vending machines, which not just have, don't just have, chocolates and everything, but you literally get everything, cereals, fruits. They're there to make sure hunger is not an issue.
It's not an issue. And when you think about it, we tend to develop soft feelings towards people who feed us. And I know. So this includes your employer. I mean, if I know there's breakfast at work, I'll make for that 7 a.m. Maybe I'm like, oh, at my big age, by the way, when I'm told, come at 7, we have food, I'll be there at 6:30.
I'll be there, don't worry. But if there's no food, you're like, let's make it 10.
I have to make breakfast, I have to carry my tea, and,
That's a really interesting theory. It feels like business isn't just about, get the money, get the staff, get the clients in, but there's a psychological aspect to, and a scientific one too, to this whole field that some people take for granted.
They do, and you have to understand your employees, you have to understand your customers, what really matters to your customers. You could be a coffee shop that thinks that you're selling coffee, but what your customers care about is a meeting space. So more important than the coffee is to make sure the tables are comfortable, the chairs are comfortable, the ambience.
There's plugs. There's plugs for people who need laptops.
Good noise management, so that it's not all loud and stuff. So it's psychological, but also investing a little bit in getting to understand your customers. Sunny Bindra, who I really admire and love what he says about businesses. He says, as a business leader, it doesn't matter how big your business is, you have to talk to the customer. So even if you're a bank manager or even a CEO of a bank, get down and walk around the shop floor, see what's happening, talk to the customers. So as much as it may be jarring, like if you go online and you tweet, what do you think about this? And you're like,
you've opened the floodgates. Wait for the comments. But it's important.
It's
the interaction is important.
Customers want to
and you
be
learn so
listened
much too.
Exactly.
So now, Kellie, say for instance, I had my 9 to 5 and I had started this side hustle, which is pretty much everyone watching at home or in the office right now. How do we know when it's time to move from side hustle to the main gig, that we can transfer all our energies to that?
So it's both a personal finance decision, but also a business decision.
Okay.
Once your side hustle is bringing in, has customer numbers, it's bringing in a bit of money, you then feel maybe, and you've saved up, you have your emergency fund, what Rina said, you know, and an investment plan, etc. And you feel that I can afford to stay a couple of months without the salary I was earning. Because often the business won't be able to pay that, to match that pay. Some people are lucky that it does, but most people it doesn't. And then on the business side, what you look at is, if I invest my time in the business, will the growth compensate for what I'm doing at my day job?
Okay, but how do you know if it will?
So it's both subjective and objective. You look at the skills you have, you look at the weaknesses the business currently has. What are the things that your people are not able to do that would happen better if you were there? So is it the sales element? And most people quit their day jobs to go to the main gig, to do business development, because people know you, they don't know the people who work for you, and you tell yourself, the equity I have created, if I transfer it to the business, it will grow the business. And that then is what you gauge. And to be honest, there's no shame in leaving and then failing and then going back. I have done it.
No, and I think all the great businessmen haven't, it's not just been smooth sailing, there's been failures in there.
There's been failures, and our culture punishes failure. You hear, so and so, oh, they went into business and they failed. And I'm like, everyone fails. So it's making that judgment call, and sometimes you need to take the plunge. Go in there. It will be tough, but eventually, it either works and the business grows, or it doesn't, and you learn the lessons and move on.
Okay, so we've just touched on failure quickly, but how do you know when it's time to let go? Because I've heard of these incredible stories, for instance, of people making sales pitches, and they've pitched 147 times, and on the 148th is when they get a yes, and they build this big multi-million-dollar company. But how do you know when it's just time to say goodbye?
So objectively speaking, for a business, the indicator that it's time to either say goodbye or change your business, if customers are not responding to your business. All these other things, fundraising, running out of money, those can be fixed, like you say. You can pitch, you can change the way you're fundraising. But if your business, the way you've positioned it, is not getting a response from the market, then either there's something you need to tweak, to pivot, as we call it, or you need to just quit. So if you're running out of money, that can be fixed. If everyone has quit on you, that can be fixed. For as long as customers are responding, then there's hope. But if you get to a point where you're not making sales and there's no hope of making sales, then
let go.
Let go
and find something new. Now I know in business there's a lot of emphasis on having the right tools and getting the clients in, and the customers have to be happy. But I think quite often the staff, the employees, are overlooked. How do you go about assembling but also maintaining a team?
So in fact, you asked what skill is most important in being an entrepreneur, and I should have mentioned this. I feel like the ability to understand and work with people. Empathy, and also coaching. Because when you start out, you don't have money to pay salaries, so it means everyone who comes in will be young or inexperienced. And so you have to teach them to replace you, so that then you can move on and do other things. So that's one. Then the second one is where you have, I talked about self-awareness, where you have sudden deficiencies. Then you want to hire people who have those skills, or even bring them on as core shareholders, because you may not afford them. So maybe your weakness is marketing, and your business, every business needs marketing, right? So you may want to bring in either an advisor or a partner who's great at marketing, and then they hire a coach, and you grow the business. But the most important thing is to understand people and the ability to coach them.
I hear you. And I think quite often we just assume, it's okay, I'll just pay them this, and then you get angry when things aren't being done, but it's because you're also not invested in growing the team. Thank you. That's it for today's show. I feel like I could sit and ask you 1,000 more questions about side hustles and how to grow it and what mistakes people make. But I'm sure that just means you're going to be back tomorrow and the day after as we continue to learn and grow on this show, because that's what we're about. Kellie, you are amazing. I know you've got to run now. And I'm sure you also have things to do, other shows to catch up on NTV. For now, we're going to love you and leave you, but be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp. We're talking about relationships. See you tomorrow.